Delighted to say Ben Cope, political writer and commentator, and Jonathan Gibson, political commentator. Boys in blue, good morning.
Good morning, David.
How are you both?
We're good,
well.
we're good.
Good. Should we start with Rachel Reeves? I mean, so Charlie Rowley says she's had a terrible week, and I pretty much agree with that. The Sunday Telegraph this morning, Reeves at war with Labour's blockers. This is really interesting. Rachel Reeves says she's not going to tolerate blockers in her own party standing in the way of plans for growth. This is the planning and infrastructure bill that's coming in. This is basically her lobbing a grenade at her own side, saying, don't you dare derail me. We've meanwhile got Ed Mad Miliband and his quest for net zero and sticking windmills everywhere for no apparent reason, even though they generated 1% of electricity last week. And then she's now saying the economy is paramount. She knows she's in trouble.
I think she does. I think she was probably sort of slightly less sort of out to dry with her budget. I think it was like way too much of the government's entire agenda was sort of pinned on her. I think it was then disappointing, and then after that we've seen the repercussions. So she's clearly trying to sort of not only sort of pivot the Treasury, but pivot I think the entire government towards a growth agenda. And for me, I think that's an excellent thing. I think it was disappointing that the Conservatives sort of failed to grasp that while in government. So at least in communication, she's clearly doing that. Let's hope she delivers on it.
And how do you see that fractious relationship with Miliband? Who's going to win that?
I really hope Rachel Reeves does. I mean, at the moment, Miliband's obviously got a sort of pretty militant line towards sort of energy by 2030, and I think I think towards given that the Parliament will sort of stretch towards that, I think people will realise that it is an unrealistic target by then. So I'm hoping that just sort of common sense prevails under Keir Starmer.
So the devil is in the detail here, because of course what she's also got in her hands is her own constituency MPs. So she is rightly saying we need to build more houses, 1.5 million over 5 years, which is exactly the same as the previous target. She says the default is yes, and we're going to reduce the environmental lobbies. There's another really interesting point here, which is the provision of housing around train stations. Whilst I can understand that being a great idea, I wonder how communities are going to react to that.
Well, I think it's absolutely vital and something we've massively failed on over the last 50 years, which is effective infrastructure development in these areas. And we've had not just environmental lobbies, but people who care about the view or, the fact that there's a single oak tree in the middle of a field, essentially blocking massive development, which is really, really harming opportunities for young people to get onto the property ladder, to have that sort of security. And it's something that Rachel Reeves, I really hope, can push through with it, because, again, you do see significant hurdles and obstacles from people who don't want disruption to their own community or house building, when actually for Britain to be a great country, it's absolutely vital that we create this space.
So she also says, I'm going to deliver for working people. I've heard this so many times.
What is working people?
What
it's
does
the
that
most
mean?
Generic thing ever, and we know that it's a political phrase for nonsense.
But do you think that turns voters off when they hear working people?
I just think it's a bit of an eye roll, like it doesn't really mean anything. It's one of those standard trot-out political phrases to incorporate a whole group and not alienate anyone, but thereby not really bring anyone into the political
I mean, it's so interesting. She says, I'm ambitious for growth in Britain. For 14 years, our growth has been anemic. It has been on the floor, pointing to the previous government. She also, and I think this is quite important, is talks about the environmental, all these lobby groups. I read this story this morning. There's been a decade-long study into the habits of an endangered species of snails. It has been holding up vital road improvements at a black spot. It was meant to take 3 years. It has taken 10 years. They are no closer to deciding what to do with said snails. And I think this is in Suffolk, in northwest Norfolk, actually. You do have to say, what the heck are you doing? Like HS2, for example, and the bat shed, which cost, 100 million quid or thereabouts. So is Reeves on the right track here?
I think she totally is. I think there are a lot of elements here. One, I think she's right that we do just need to be able to, the central government needs to be able to push things through where possible. I also think we need to change the incentive structures here, whereby at the moment local communities, have every incentive to block things because they don't at least sort of immediately receive the economic benefit of development. So I think if we can try and whether it's through the new kind of like slightly like federalist structures they're trying to bring out with different mayoralties, for example, if there can be like fiscal incentive for communities to build, I think that's useful. I also think blockers should face, like when they bring things to court, should face some kind of financial jeopardy.
Should they?
I think if you bring something to court and you failed...
What about if the government says we're going to shove a pylon in your garden?
People are using
well,
it as a tool.
Well, then the government would lose, and then the person wouldn't. But if you're, bringing studies about snails, it's costing the country millions and millions, then I think that there should be some financial cost for doing so.
I mean, that is extraordinary.
It's more than just that. It is extraordinary, absolutely. But someone thinks that the view is not so nice, and so they know that they take it to court, and they'll probably push everything back another 5 years. And so the developer thinks, is it really worth it? A 5-year fight in court, lots of money being spent, and it's just really, really difficult, and it increases the layers of bureaucracy.
What about having a third runway at Heathrow, expanding Luton and Gatwick? Are you in favour?
As in, I haven't looked enough in detail at the specifics of the case, but broadly it's something that I would support. But I think the main thing that we need to support is the housing and the infrastructure within cities, within development. Only 2% of the UK is urbanised. There is lots of room for development, and the planning structures...
infrastructure as well, and you need doctors' surgeries and supermarkets. And this is the thing that the government never seems to get right, as far as I can see.
It's something that I think both governments have massively failed on over the last 50 years or so. There's been big failings to deliver promises on both sides. It is something that's really difficult. You've seen particularly richer constituencies blocking it because it decreases the value of their land. We saw that with HS2, particularly wealthier Conservative constituencies made an effort to force the development to be dug underground, which harmed and massively increased the cost of the project.
Yep.
And so I think there needs to be a radical reshaping in terms of how we approach this sort of problem.
It's fascinating to me. It seems to me that the government has no strategic plan. So you've got different departments all going in different directions. Rachel Reeves, just back from Davos, now suddenly reaches for low-hanging fruit, third runway at Heathrow. Your thoughts on that?
I entirely agree. I mean, there was... I think it was a Tim Shipman piece from 2 or 3 months ago when he said Starmer supposedly was very frustrated when he entered Downing Street and realised that no one had developed a plan, and obviously sort of not realising that would primarily be his own responsibility. And I think ultimately we're living out that failure to provide any vision. I think in some ways it's sort of slightly unfair that Reeves is sort of feeling the need to step up and do this, but yeah, it definitely puts her into conflict with other departments.
Yeah. I was going to say, I also think there's something to be said for the narrative, because narrative economics is a thing. When you talk down the economy or you talk up the economy, it actually has an effect.
So they're complicit in that?
Well, I think at the start they spent way too long talking it down and being caution whilst not implementing the budget. I think that was a mistake. I think they didn't
also
understand.
Wasn't the issue that they had this impasse, this void of information, because the minute they got into power, then there was that huge passage of time, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Until there was actually a budget. So no one knew what to do.
So I think now it's better that they're talking up the economy, they're talking about plans for growth, because hopefully that will increase confidence.
So the bit I don't understand, she is the only person saying there'll be 6 interest rate cuts this year.
Mm-hmm.
Who's right? The Economist or Rachel from who is an economist?
I mean, I'm sure Rachel will have the final say, or the government will have the final say in dictating what sort of... Yeah, but I guess the interest rates will depend on government policy. We know that if you carry out certain economic policies, that will lead to certain movements on interest rates, but obviously the Bank of England has the final say.
And just finally, the lack of confidence from business, saying we're not investing, we're not getting involved. Look at the housing market. I'm particularly noticing the capital at the moment, which has normally always been thriving. The housing market is literally in the toilet in London.
Yeah, I mean, so I think a broadly lack of trust from business. I think while there was the big black hole they supposedly needed to fill at the budget, I think that choosing employer national insurance was that is clearly an anti-growth measure. So I think if Reeves is going to pivot towards growth, I think she might need to.
So should she ditch that employer national insurance?
Yeah, I think she should find money somewhere else.
Would she?
I don't think she will, but she should.
OK, chaps, I have to go to a break. Stay where you are. We'll continue with our Future Politics panel after this break.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Talk 8:41, Sunday, January the 26th. We're in the middle of Future Politics panel with Ben Cope, political writer and commentator, and Jonathan Gibson, who's a political commentator. This is really interesting. I've been talking about it this morning, actually. Pressure is growing on Labour to improve the trade deal with the EU. Keir Starmer under growing pressure to forge closer economic links with Europe. 5 years on from Brexit. Brexit happened, amazingly, 5 years ago, this Friday coming. So this is a poll, an MRP survey of almost 15,000 people by YouGov for Best of Britain think tank, shows more people in every constituency back closer arrangements with the EU rather than more transatlantic trade with Washington. Rachel Reeves was then asked by The Observer about Brexit. She says that Brexit has harmed the UK economy. Jonathan.
Yes, I think the UK economy has certainly been harmed. How did I guess what you were going to say? Economy, believe it or not. But I think you can look at the statistics as well. It's not really an opinion at this point. The UK economy is estimated to be £5.5 billion smaller than it would have been if we'd have remained. The trade's massively decreased by 27 billion. The employment, there's 1.8 million fewer jobs. The cost of living's higher. It's approximately £210 more expensive for a basket of food. So it depends what you are.
Also, hang on, here's what I would throw back at you and what our viewers will be throwing back at you. We haven't Brexited. We haven't taken advantage.
Well, we didn't have a referendum on exactly what type of Brexit we wanted. That was part of the issue.
What do you want? A full fat one or a semi-skimmed?
Exactly, that was not a choice, you know. I like mine semi-skimmed, but some other people might want it.
Isn't the issue here actually that we have put in place the building blocks of it, but actually it was because the civil service didn't want to do it and the governments didn't want to do it. Theresa May didn't want to do it. Dave, call me Dave, legged it the minute he lost, and there was nothing left.
I mean, David Cameron left because he didn't want to do it. That was the whole point. But I think with bureaucracy...
But he called the referendum.
Yes, he did.
That's
and then
what's
he resigned.
so terrible about the whole thing.
Well, he thought he'd win, didn't he?
He did,
you know, they were probably quite glad that he called the referendum, I'm guessing. Right. Reform definitely were very happy, and they were the one part of the people, or Brexit Party as it was, which pushed the Conservative Party to do this. But bureaucratically, it's very, very difficult to implement such a big piece of legislation with such radical changes to our infrastructure and system. So there is significant time lags and significant hurdles, and that's just part of what it means to have a civil service, to have an infrastructure around law.
But of course, we annexed Northern Ireland. Out in Northern Ireland, we got this ridiculous system of red and green lanes. We actually have signed trade agreements with various parts of the various other countries as well. We also have tariff-free access to the EU as well. Where do you stand on this? What is behind this headline? Is what I'm getting at. Why is she saying this now?
Yeah, I mean, at least for me, I feel like if as we were talking about earlier, as Reeves is pivoting towards growth, I think this is a fundamental part of that. I think, you know, as Jonathan was saying, I don't think there's any argument that at least the kind of Brexit we have had has significantly harmed growth. You know, you can. I think the only argument for how sort of Brexit could have sort of potentially helped the economy is if you take the more kind of Singapore libertarian model. I'm not sure like anything else. But then I think that is a very unpopular view among British voters.
No, it isn't. It's an unpopular view amongst civil servants.
I'm not sure that's true.
Isn't it?
I don't think that's true.
Okay.
I think generally there's over the last sort of 15 years there's been a massive swing towards kind of interventionist government where people expect the state to step in at sort of any point. I'm not sure, you know, that kind of...
Well, and the price of that, whopping great taxes. You think people are in favour of that?
It's not necessarily through taxes, but if you look at the rise of whatever you want to call it, populism is the word people often use, but you know, Trump, Orban,
yes.
Exactly, none of them are free marketeers. The tariff that Trump imposed, which I think is probably one of the key reasons why the UK is looking maybe more towards Brexit, because that's estimated to harm the UK economy by about 4.5% potentially.
Duncan's point about having cake and eating said cake. So you have good relationships with Europe and the United States.
That's the ideal. That is what we want, but I think that's why we're also working really hard on a relationship with the EU, which is maybe something we've been struggling with in recent years.
Interesting. Two sensible young men on your politics panel this morning. Great show again.
Wow. I never get that.
Are you watching something else? Lots of other messages coming in. No, I don't believe that Brexit has damaged Britain. The last government damaged Brexit by not doing a good enough job, mainly because there was little support or enthusiasm for carrying it out, and not finishing the job by not being more robust with our needs and prosperity. It's interesting, actually, even Nigel Farage, I saw him on Question Time, and they pushed him on Brexit, and he just went, it's done, we voted, it's done. And I thought that was quite an interesting comment. I didn't expect him to say that.
Sure, but I guess that's probably because he doesn't want the evaluation side of it, which is that it's been an unmitigated disaster.
No, the implementation of said Brexit has been an unmitigated disaster, I think.
Well, it depends how you define what Brexit was. If Brexit is
taking back control of our money, laws and borders. I said it enough.
Okay, but we said that's a phrase, and we all know that. If you're talking about the actual specifics, there's certain things Brexit would do which would reduce free trade, for example, with the European Union, which is our main trading partner. That is going to have an adverse impact.
But European trade is declining. The trade with the rest of the world is increasing.
Sure, but as a sum of the total trade, it's still the biggest proportion of our trade. You know, the CPTPP trade deal, which I support. You know, I think it's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
Far smaller proportion of trade. Maybe in 50 years' time that will change. I don't know. We'll have to see. But at the moment, Europe is a significant trading partner who we simply can't neglect at these troublesome times.
Okay, let's just put you on the spot, Ben. If you were Rachel Reeves, what would you do at this point with regards to Brexit?
I think, I think I'd do what she's doing, sort of subtly try to create sort of slightly closer trading relationships to boost growth where possible, but I think if they want to actually revisit a proper sort of formal relationship, do it in the second term.
Okay, Ben and Jonathan, we'll take a break. We'll continue with our...
No longer going to be popular with your viewers.
Well, no.
Sorry.
No, you're not. Oh, what terrible... Who are these twins? Same shirt, same glasses, same look and same views, says Tony. Well, there you are. We'll continue with our Future Politics panel after this break.
What would be your position in terms of how we would even begin to think about administrating something like the death penalty? I mean, how would we do it?
I haven't got the answer to that, Mike, but I do think there's reasons now to have a serious national debate for reintroducing the death penalty in exceptional circumstances. And I think this is an exceptional circumstance. So I would listen to all the arguments and then make a decision. And I think that's how good government should work.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Good morning, this is Talk. Right, I'm in the middle of this Future Politics panel with Ben Cope and with Jonathan Gibson. Ian from Merseyside, good morning to you. Now, I listen to your show every weekend. Now, whilst listening to your Future Politics panel, I nearly believed I was at a North London dinner party. Great show, thank you very much. This one is Dale from Halifax, putting both of you right on Brexit. Brexit came along, then COVID came along, so Brexit was put on the back burner. Great show, thank you very much. Our energy policy has done more to harm our economy than any other factor. That is Barry, thank you for that. And this one, which is very close to my heart, Doug in Whittam, David, East Anglia is going to disappear under pylons, wind farms, solar panels, battery storage sites. Add to that the thousands of houses planned. Farmland will be stolen, Greenbelt will be put on, no infrastructure built. It's all short-term planning. Keep all of that coming in. And one more, Claire. Good morning, David. Good morning to you. No, I don't believe that Brexit has damaged Britain. The last government damaged Brexit by not doing a good job. Right. Now, I want to move on to give you a test this morning, okay, which will fill you with dread. Now, my Italian producer took a test. She wanted to become a UK citizen, goodness knows why. Last week, she passed the test, I'm very pleased to say. So you have to do this test, okay? And I'm going to give you the test. That you have to do 24 questions. We're going to do 10. You have to answer 75% to pass. It costs £1,640 to do this test, by the way. You have to also do an English language test. Right, OK, I'm going to ask you this question.
Do the English language test first?
No, you passed that one. Quite well.
Okay.
Quite well. The first question is, what is the minimum age you can drive a car or motorcycle in the UK? Is it 17? Is it 21? Is it 18? Or is it 25?
17.
Yeah, 17.
Yes. What is it?
Well, my brother's doing it.
Oh, very good. Yeah, very good. Oh, very good. Look at that. We've got a ding. Is the statement below true or false? Members of the public are allowed to attend youth court hearings. True or false?
Youth court hearings.
It's so funny. This is to be a UK citizen, and UK citizens don't know.
So I'd go false, but I don't know.
Would you?
I'll go true.
Right, it's false.
Yeah, it's youth.
Youth. Which of the following statements is correct? Is it A, the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms in England united under King Alfred the Great, or the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms in England united under King Kenneth MacAlpin?
Alfred the Great.
Alfred the Great.
Alfred the Great. Well done, chaps. Which of the following statements is correct? The Reform Act of 1832 reduced the number of people who had the right to vote. Or the Reform Act of 1832 increased the number of people who had the right to vote.
Allowed the middle class to vote. That was
increase, yeah.
Increase, both right. Which of the following statements is correct? By the middle of the 17th century, I mean, how difficult are these? By the middle of the 17th century, the last Welsh rebellions had been defeated. Or, by the middle of the 15th century, the last Welsh rebellions had been defeated.
No, I'd go 17.
I'd go 17th as well.
15th. Both wrong.
Is it?
Yeah. For approximately how many years were the Romans in Britain? Were they there for 50 years, 100 years, 400 years, or 600 years?
About 400.
Yeah,
Probably right. Yeah. 400. Well done. Is the statement true or false? The Channel Islands are part of the United Kingdom. True or false?
True. Wait. Hold on. No, sorry. They're not.
No. Right. Who invaded England in 1066? Was it Richard the Lionheart, King Canute, William the Duke of Normandy, or Harold of Wessex?
That was William. Normandy, yeah.
Well done. Very good, yeah. After the Bill of Rights was passed in 1689, which two political groups emerged? Was it Labour and the Tories, A, B, Whigs and the Tories, C, Whigs and Nationalists, D, Nationalists and Tories?
No, that's the Whigs and the Tories.
Oh, yeah. Top banana. Well, yeah. He said. And finally, which two religions celebrate Diwali? Is it Hindus and Christians, Hindus and Sikhs, Christians and Sikhs, Buddhists and Christians?
Is that Hindus and Sikhs?
Both correct. Well done. You pass, and you can now remain in the United Kingdom. And it's difficult, isn't it?
Not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's
Not easy at all. I found that absolutely extraordinary, actually. Well done. I'm very impressed with both of you. I wonder if I could just do... there was something else that I wanted to do, which was about dress code on airlines. Spirit Airlines basically has banned people from wearing certain things. And this is... Oh, here we are. So this is Spirit Airlines has introduced a new passenger dress code. So they basically have said they have updated their contract of carriage for passengers, updating its dress code. So a guest should not be permitted to board the aircraft if they're barefoot, inadequately clothed. You cannot wear see-through clothing, exposed breasts, buttocks or other private parts, lewd, obscene or offensive clothing or tattoos. Have you seen some shocking behaviour on aircraft?
Not anything like that. That feels like a fairly low bar, to be honest. It's quite disappointed they feel the need to say that.
Yeah, I would agree. But I have seen people who really have forgotten that they're in a public place.
Oh, it's unbelievable. You don't need entertainment. You don't need a book or whatever. Sometimes you can just look at these aisles and people with their massive suitcases, which somehow they manage to get on as hand luggage, and they're arguing and switching places. Oh, it's ridiculous.
Brilliant, lovely. Thank you very much to both of you, of course, to Ben Cope and also Jonathan Gibson. That was today's